nakakita ako ng research na ginawa ng Filipino scientist na Big Night 3 daw yung magsusurvive sa Pasay. So, yun yung pinili ko kasi ayoko namang kumuha ng plant na baka along the way hindi siya mag-survive. So, Big Night tree is native sa Southeast Asia, India, or yung mga tropical countries. Yan. And irrigation, okay lang siya kahit mainit and hindi niya kailangan ng masyadong madaming water. So, yeah. May fruits din siya na edible, parang grapes. Pero unlike grapes, hindi pare-pareho yung ripeness niya. Like this, iba-iba yung color niya. And minsan yung iba hindi pa ripe, yung iba ripe na sa isang bundle. I don't. So pwede siyang full sun, which is I think better. Kasi yung sa site ko walang masyadong shade and yung buildings hindi rin masyadong matataas. And nasa halos katabi niya yung main road. C4 ata yung tawag doon. So, pwede rin part shade, suitable for hedging and screening. And pwede rin siya for pots. Pwede siyang, so, yung height niya is pwedeng, may mga maliliit na plansya parang bonsai. So, pwede rin siyang indoors. And it attracts birds. So I think that's good. Kasi wala akong masyadong nakikitang birds dun sa site. So, yeah. Yung site section, sir, hindi siya detailed. Kasi, sir, yung ito is hindi pa ako nakapasok. And this one, kasi Chinese building siya. And yung tarpaulin Chinese din. So, pero I think, ano siya, nightclub ata. Itong mahaba na to. Sa likod. This one, apartments. And this one, hindi ko alam yung tawag sa building na yun, pero lagi may mga riders ng Shopee doon. So, dun lang kinukuha yung orders tas deliver. And then dito yung sa site. Ito yung site ko. And yung form ko, yung blue, yun yung shadow na kinast nung building, nung finold ko siya. And yeah, finold ko siya hanggang mag-cast ng madaming shadows, maximum shadows. Depende sa time. Yan, sir. Yung March 15 to May 15 yung summer. Yung kinuha kong date and 6 o'clock to 15:30 yung time. So, ito yung likod, sir, nung building. So, konti lang yung nang-cast ng shadow kasi mababa yung buildings and this one's 3:30. So, yeah. Yun lang, sir. Ay, sir, yung Big Night tree pala, I also chose that kasi may malapit na hospital din doon. So,
Kyle, ikaw muna.
yeah. Sir?
Cook muna because I'm meeting.
Sige, sir.
Yun na yung ano, yung dun sa site section, okay lang sana kung representational. It doesn't have to be super duper accurate. Kasi for example, alam ko na naman na yung topography naman nung lupa, nilalagay nyo, nakaslope naman siya in a certain way, di ba? Hindi naman natin pina-survey yun sa geodetic engineer to be super accurate, di ba? So, yung dun sa may loob, yung sinabi mo na hindi ka naman kasi nakapasok, so hindi mo nalagyan ng ano. And I wish you still would have pushed through na nilagay mo yung ano, yung ganong bagay dun sa loob. Even if, di ba, parang you could guess that it's a two-story building. Pakita mo lang na it's a two-story building. Yung loob. Ganon. And then I think baka masyado siyang naging plain for me yung ano, yung buong site section. So you could have done a little bit more din sa may
Can I
site
butt
section.
in lang?
Mm.
Matic, your
Sure.
section with the Shopee building and then the apartment, was it really cut through the site that non?
Sir, yung site ko nasa gitna ng apartment tsaka nung Shopee building.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Sige, go ahead.
Mm. Tapos yung dun sa may yung sa may analysis mo nung site, I hope na you could get to use yung again the surrounding buildings perhaps on how it could help or synergize with your proposal dito sa may Binay 3, Bignay 3. So, marami namang information ikaw na nakuha. And I hope you could get to use yung mga different information, even the fruiting, yung mga ganun-ganun. I get that you could get to use something about the Big Night 3. So, yung challenge nyo sa'yo kasi it's A3, of course, it would require more area. It would require that you take care of the canopy of the tree para and then take care of the roots niya, 'di ba? Kasi mas malaki yung mga ano, mas malaki yung area requirement mo for a different plant versus let's say bamboo, 'di ba? Yung bamboo naka-clump together siya. Bali yung nag-research yung bamboo, marami pa yun mag-research sa bamboo. Anong klaseng growing ng bamboo, may naka-clump together, may mga nakahiwalay, yung mga ganon. But for you, kasi mostly sila mas smaller type of plant eh. Iba yung magiging approach na to sa architecture, I would presume. And then ano pa ba? May gusto ko kayo share na information about trees. Okay lang.
Yun lang. Wag.
So, may one time nung nagpa-slave ako kay JY, tapos nung nag-meeting kami, nandun si landscape architect and urban planner ba yun? Si Paulo Alcazaren, dun sa meeting na yon. Tapos
Pardon.
nagkukwento siya about trees. Now, if yung tree daw, let's say ito yung puno mo, ayan, puno, 'di ba yan? Ibilog natin, puno, ayan. Tapos ito yung trunk ng puno, 'di ba? Ang tree daw usually has five main roots. So, ito yung one root, two, three, four, five. Yan, usually five main roots. Ngayon, ang tree mo, if you look at it from the front, di ba, ito, sabihin natin puno, ganyan. May canopy yung tree. Pangit ng drawing ko, oh my god. May canopy yung tree, di ba? Yung root system niya is somewhat the same lang din dun sa size ng canopy. Most of the time, ganon. So, kung ano yung size ng canopy sa taas, yun yung size ng ano. And then yung canopy, of course, may drip line yan. Ang kailangan mo i-take care daw is really the drip line area of the trees. Kasi dun daw kumukuha ng
Guys, listen up.
water, yung roots. And then, yung ating roots, pagka pinutol mo daw yan more than half nung roots, pinutol mo daw, mamamatay yung tree. So if as much as possible, puputulin mo lang one of the big roots or dalawa ng big roots. So that's what I remember from what he was sharing, which was good information about trees. Yun. Ay, naka-record pala. Oh my gosh, nag-share ako. Ganun. Nag-name drop ako. I-public na lang.
Yeah,
So, yan. Siya yung
ito na harmful yung sinabi mo eh. Actually,
hindi naman. Ayan. So, may ganun lang na things about trees na I don't think there's so much information about trees na ganun, but, taking care of trees, yun. How would you allow water to ano? And naman, di ba, if trees like you look at from underneath the canopy. When you look upward, meron parang crowning na nagaganap. Like, di ba parang may space in between sila. Hindi sila take over ng territory. So, yun yung parang magiging challenge mo with your architecture on how to maximize putting the trees and then yung mga ganong bagay-bagay. Ayun. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Aside from comments, Matic, make sure that your presentation is in landscape format because the screen is in a landscape format. Because
Actually,
how the others presented the work, they still, while the others are really, really good, they try to achieve a very visual presentation because this can easily be copied.
I agree.
And we want to avoid copied and pasted. Why we need to be more visual, like I reiterated earlier, we need to be able to bridge the visual cues and the research part because the visual cues will give you cues to the physicality of architecture. And then you need to immerse in the information. Without that process, it will be very hard for you and to your jurors how you were able to arrive at a certain form given the information that you present. Because right now you're looking at all text. You get it? You get it? For the visual reader, they'll just ignore that. And then all of a sudden you present your form, where did it come from? But if you're able to see something very visual, then it's so easy to link all the information together. Do you get it? Okay, so can you move Can you move forward to your slide? Can you just see that? I might be able to comment more.
Baka dun sa may sun carving, you can comment on that one.
Okay. Okay. Just you need to look to use other visual languages that you learn in tech drawing, visual com, even AD Sprint. Like, what are those visual languages? Those lines, those shapes, etc., to communicate an idea. And one of those are the direction of the sun, the planes, and then each line has meaning. If it's a continuous line, if it's a broken line, it's up to you how you're going to use it. If it's going to be broken line, it means that something behind. But in other cases, I use the broken lines to communicate another meaning. But you need to introduce those visual languages to make your communication more effective. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Matic. Aaron,
Thanks.
we
Thank
haven't
you.
forgotten about you.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
And hello, sir. Coos. So let me just share
Now,
screen.
nothing.
Hello.
Okay, good.
Ano yan? Niredo niya yung sun carving niya?
Yes, sir. So, if I can go back. So, sir, to begin my presentation, I just have I just went back to some of the old sheets that I had just so I can explain this better. So after getting a lot of comments, sir, from you, sir, Cooks, I started investigating more about clinics and hospitals, and just in general what I can do with them. But because in this turn, so in this time, I actually wanted to go in a more practical direction. So compared to before, I did more of a historical, somewhat artistic, sculptural kind of direction. I wanted to go for a more practical route in this one, more investigative. So I actually tried to understand the location better in terms of whether or not it would be reasonable to have a clinic or a hospital within my vicinity. And what I found was that 700 meters away, we already have a general hospital. So that was kind of an issue that we had. And the second issue that I came across was the roads that I have here. They're only 2-laners. So in terms of traffic and how that would be congested more by a clinic or a hospital, that's something that I worried about. A clinic might have been a better option, but the trouble that I also came across was that beyond having a general hospital that was just 700 meters away, I also found that in Pasay City there were also 4 more clinics so that I would compete with. So it kind of became a bit more redundant to actually have a hospital or clinic, unfortunately. Although I was very excited to already start working on a clinic or a hospital. Unfortunately, I couldn't based on just the data I had obtained rather. So instead, I kind of went back to my old sheets and my old investigations and started to learn better what would be fitting for the area. I considered things like restaurants and maybe even maybe even places where people could socialize, like social spaces. But eventually, I came to this conclusion that it would be best to have a mixed use kind of a kind of project for this one. Mainly because, as you can see here in the programs sheet that I have here, you can tell that in Pasay City, right here in this Protasio Zamora area, you'll find that there's a lot of house and lots. This area is quite residential, though it's very open and it's very open to the public. So there's no gates. Unlike many of, I guess, many of the people that we have presented before me, the location that we have in Pasay is a lot more free. It's a lot more public, and because of that, that's one of the reasons why we actually have higher partitions. So we have higher walls to keep the building safer. So that's one thing I observed. And beyond that, we have mostly trading services and also apartment buildings. So again, a lot of them are very independent in terms of how they create their spaces. It's very independent, and there's this lack of community and this lack of engagement between the community, and for good reason. Again, because this area is quite too public already in terms of environment, and there's not very little things that we can change about that. And one of the concerns that will also arise in this situation is we don't actually have any sidewalk in this entire area. So that's another unfortunate detail. So knowing all this, you can already tell that that this Pasay City, this area in Pasay City, rather, it's not pedestrian friendly. It's primarily for business. It's primarily for residentials or basically apartment buildings. And so I wanted to go for a mixed use, mainly to have an office, hopefully, that would also kind of cater to the entire, just the entire feel of the programs in the area. Mainly because the Protasio Street is quite a secondary road, so it's quite a prominent road nonetheless. That you'll find easily in the map as well. And yeah, so that's basically just to kick off how I just started off with my rationality of how I wanted to deal with the project. So this is actually just an update on the elevations that I did. So I added more profiling. I added the dotted lines just to indicate the site a little bit better. So this is actually it was quite a challenge for me to start using Illustrator. So this is actually quite fun to do, I had realized. So yeah, so this is
It looks
basically
very
just
nice, Yeah.
Thank you.
Diba?
Yeah, I would also kind of
Looks
like
very
to
nice.
also give thanks, because a friend of mine, so Tracy, is actually one of the students here who mentored me throughout this entire process. At one point, she just taught me all the
Wow.
basics that I needed to know about Illustrator. She gave me like this one night course, and I was just like, okay, let's try to figure out how to do this. So it was a lot of fun, nonetheless. It was actually quite okay, and thankfully I was able to come up with something that I couldn't have done before. So this is just to give an overview of what the buildings kind of look like. Like I mentioned before, it's quite congested. It's quite blocky. There's a lot of concrete fences, you could call them, concrete partitions that really keep each building safe. And so that's the overall environment in the overall feel that you'll get in this space. And so yeah, if I can move on. So the plant that I've been researching is still the same. It's Pasao na Hapay. I still haven't lost my passion for for its roots, but I'm gonna apply it very differently now. And so the idea for Pasao na Hapay, as I was digging a little bit deeper, I realized that it was basically it was a plant that was initially was known to be the plant that Pasay City was named after. And so there's a lot of contextual roots in terms of the plant. There's a lot of relationships that it has with the city. So I also wanted to kind of put it to use once more, hopefully in this project. And so this just gives a background on the constituents and the chemicals it has. These are quite important because once I start talking about what I want to do with the plant, the chemical compounds actually play a big role of whether or not I can do it, whether or not I can integrate it in that sense. So this is just an overview of what I just mentioned a while ago. So here you also get just a world map just to see where these plants can also be located. So Pasao na Hapay is it's often found in weed of rice and wetlands across continents, now pantropic. So it was actually introduced to the Philippines. So unfortunately, it's one of those plants that were not necessarily native, but they were brought to the Philippines at one point, throughout the migrations of people. So just from that, you can already get a bit of a gist more as well of how it kind of how it embedded itself into the community and to the country. And then here on the right side, here in the next slide, I actually give you just to show the height differences from its sprouting stages until its tall stages, which is it reaches until 60 centimeters maximum. Unfortunately, the data that I've been trying to gather, it's very limited, mainly because this plant is actually very it's quite hard to study, mainly because it's not that popular. So that's the struggle that I had to go through. But nonetheless, I can slightly make predictions as well of how big the area it would need. So usually they from what I was taught before is that you can gather the radius of how big the leaves kind of sprout to kind of determine roughly how the roots would sprout as well. So so just from that's just to give a scale. And then here I actually start to talk about the properties. So again, like I mentioned before, there was a lot of folkloric uses, and they're more properly defined here on how they used it back in the day. People who were like Malays in the Nigeria, and so how they applied and used these leaves, its leaves and the plant as a whole. Sometimes it's roots as well. So that also gives a scale as well to the leaves that we are going to be using in later on. So the properties of this, the health benefits rather, the studies have suggested the existence of analgesic and then the anti-inflammatory, anti-diarrheal, antibacterial, and much more anti-tumor properties. So these plants have been studied to exhibit some health benefits for people, and I found this quite intriguing because it was with regards to the digestive tract most of the time. So the analgesic is actually one thing that you could use that can actually help with the liver. Anti-inflammatory can help with the throat. Anti-diarrheal can help with the colons, and antibacterial, of course, it can help in general, usually with health in terms of infection. So just like a quick overview of that, you kind of get a gist of what the plant is all about. It's quite into helping in terms of digestive tract. So in my head at this point, I was thinking it'd be a great way to integrate this somehow, that people would be able to come in contact with this and also to consume it in some way. So to create an architecture that also kind of helps or like aids that and kind of helps that make that possible. So again, just more details on where you'll find it as well. You'll find it in low and medium altitudes. So so that's just further details. So which you'll find basically in Pasay, which is quite a lower altitude. So here is the breakdown of the plant in itself and how you could use it in very different ways, and also the definitions of what they do. So there's a lot of things that I can extract from here, but let's focus first on the beneficial properties, the medical, exactly which ones we need to harvest or which ones we need to cut off or wither into creating something medical and hopefully sustain it that way. So one of them is the leaves. The study evaluated its leaves to hold anti-inflammatory properties. So that's with regards to the leaves. So if you ever want to get that particular health benefit, you would want to focus on the leaves. But then some studies also look to the bark of the entire plant. So the bark of the plant study evaluated that this is the one that helps with the liver, the analgesic and anti-inflammatory effects. So this is where you'll get it from the bark extract. And then finally, anything that is aerial parts. Aerial parts means anything that's really exposed to the oxygen around the environment. They were studied to have antioxidant property. So this is usually helpful for acidity. So this is actually also a great way to kind of to solve that issue as well in terms of digestive tracts. So so after having this information, I actually had to get a little bit deeper, because the next solution that I kind of came up with in my head was to hopefully make tea out of it and somehow integrate like harvesting tea and creating tea out of this, which I don't think has ever been done before. So I had to really look for the chemical compounds and really really cross-reference them. So one thing that I found was that so all of these properties so far, the anti-inflammatory and also the analgesic properties and even the antibacterial properties, they're quite soluble. So the leaves and the chemicals that we need for the leaves and for the bark, they're soluble. So that means I can actually transmit the health benefits by dosing it in water. Of course, not too hot, just the right amount, and be able to transmit it through there. So that was the next thing that I had to kind of focus on. And then if I may get to the next portion of the presentation, this is actually the tea processing, where I actually get a little bit deeper into the withering. So it was quite a tasky thing to do, because I had to make sure that none of the processes were going against or would take away the health benefit that I want to pass over. So withering is good. Basically, if I can zoom in, sorry, that's quite small. So basically, newly picked leaves are thinly spread to dry during this process. Rolling is actually basically withering the rest of the leaves are now twisted and rolled so that the leaves are broken up. Sometimes shaking is done as well. Oils are released with this rolling process that give the tea its distinctive aroma. And you should also note that this particular plant also it's quite notable for its scent, which was in the description a while ago. So it's actually also going to be good in terms of making tea, because apparently aroma is a big factor to it. So the leaves can be rolled with machinery or by hand. So as you can see here, the juices that are released remain on the leaf. A chemical change will occur shortly. So this is the chemical change that I had to research a bit deeper, the fermenting process, because there was, as you can see here, there's an enzymatic oxidation, and oxidation will go against analgesic properties. So that's the thing that I kind of worried about, because the analgesic properties can be diffused, they can be reduced by having the oxidation process. So that's why I put a note here that there has to be very minimal time under oxidation. So good thing that this fermenting process hopefully can help manage just how much the oxidation process will go through the plant. So hopefully I can also get deeper into the exact amount of times that it would need under oxidation, and so that it would still not reduce the overall impact. Then drying, of course, in this stage, the leaves are dried evenly and throughout and thoroughly without burning the leaves. Firing the leaves stops the oxidation process. There you go. So that was also going to be helpful as well. So the next one is basically grading, understanding in which ways the plant can be graded, and basically they're packaged in a certain way with different grades, and eventually, of course, packed into the tea bags that we know. And so just from these processes, I know that most of them are quite done indoors. And the one thing that I can only find that could be helpful was the drying portion. The drying portion, I think, could be more applicable outdoor. It could be more applicable with sunlight, with heat. So that's eventually one thing that I wanted to tackle in the future. So now the one thing that I wanted to kind of tie a knot on between these two things was that the first thing, the big question is what's the correlation between the tea and the business, the multi-use project, and so that was actually a question that I've been trying to think about for quite some time, and I came to this conclusion that nowadays people have actually been more aware of health benefits, of basically of health in general in the workspace. And so I eventually came across. I came across this study that they had before. Or basically this measure that they use currently called WELL. So WELL is basically a measurement that people use to understand how it's basically an award that's given to projects or developments based upon how they uplift basically the well-being of the people who use the building. So these are the employees or the workers. And so a part of it, which was really interesting, a part of it is actually also how much they're exposed to nutrients as well. So if ever you have like a canteen in the area, if it had more nutritious things to offer, then the more points you'll get for WELL. So so that just made it so practical to integrate having this tea processing thing that can really help in terms of health and kind of just bridge those two ideas together. So that's kind of like the bolt that holds the two together so far. And this is actually a solar carving. So I finally got into a bit more of the solar carving that we know, and that has been done in the studio. And the solar carves that I use here are actually calculated based upon, which I'll now move on. That's based upon the June solstice, the equinox, and the December solstice. So these are usually the three big major, the major sun paths that we look to. Everything else is they move quite closer to each. So June solstice quite closer to equinox, and equinox quite closer to the December solstice. So I took the extremes and the exact middle. And the reason why I do this is because it's a lot more easy to generalize the sun and how it would, put the heat inside the structure. And so knowing this, I also tried to get the hottest points in these times. So I wanted to get the ones that are extremely hot. And so I finally found a way to rationalize it, because at the first part of the project, while I was trying to, I was still new. I was still so new. I was going through the solar carving. I was thinking in my head, like if I solar carved and I placed it into the structure, wouldn't the structure be hotter, right? But then I started thinking, what if that was a good thing? What are the reasons where heating a structure or a certain portion of the structure would be a good thing? And that's when I realized that I have this one whole road, basically that goes across, that just goes forward. That's the Zamora Street, and that's where the wind is actually currently blowing through. Either Amihan or Habagat, they actually blow through that area because of the way that the road's laid out. The wind kind of follows these roads, and so that's where I get most of the wind. So I thought to my head, what if I can force the wind inside by heating, using these solar carving as a way to kind of function as a solar chimney to some extent. So if it heats up, then automatically, of course, the heat rises and it creates a low pressure point right in the center of the building, which would hopefully suck in wind throughout the building as well, so cooling it at the same time. So at these very moments where it's peaking, the heat is peaking, you get more wind at least. So that's kind of like the way I rationalized how solar carving could be done in the multi-use structure. Of course, the form is not final. So the form is definitely not final. I'm open to changing it and still remaking it as much as we can throughout the studio. But I was just quite happy with how it turned out. And so, so these are actually the times that I got. So these are based upon 2020. So these times, these critical heat times in June, March, and December are things that I got from specific times, specific heat points in 2020. So it's quite updated as well. And finally, this is actually just what I was explaining a while ago. At the back end is where I actually try to suck in the winds into the structure. Hopefully, letting the heat go out through these solar carving areas. And then, unfortunately, it's not shown here because it's quite inside. I also created an angle in such a way that it creates a 50-degree angle so that if ever the wind passes through, it circulates around the area as well. So that was also a part of the design. Unfortunately, it's not seen because it's kind of more in the interior. But that's the research I have so far. I'm thinking if I missed anything, but I think so far that's really it for me. Hopefully, you guys are still there.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I like actually I like the sun carving. Oh, I see myself.
Oh, sorry.
I
I'm so
like
sorry.
the sun carving. And then na-amuse ako gaano kadaming information yung sinasabi mo for one slide, 'di ba?
Oh, so sorry.
Kasi okay lang 'yun. Kasi pwede mo pa kung ganun kadaming information yung sinasabi mo, baka pwede mo na breakdown. Yung sa simula lang, parang kasi nagkaroon ka ng preconceived notion that it's gonna be a hospital or a clinic. So just for everyone, let's avoid thinking or preconceived notion of what the program is. Kasi mangyayari yan, we would be really designing the program so it doesn't really fit into a clinic, it's not really a hospital, di ba ganun? Hindi yun yung mangyayari. Eventually, it's going to be probably, sabihin natin, kung you went to the direction of the health properties. Tapos parang hindi siya clinic exactly, but it's a wellness building, for example, related sa healing, ganon. Kasi merong hospital 700 meters away and pwedeng parang outpatient sinimajig siya na mag-help support ang mga patients. Parang ganun na bagay. You know, it could have been something like that on the wellness side, but then you wanted to make it into a tea, which was, I think, was an interesting idea. And the way you said na pagka ginawa to, merong aroma, you know, you could imagine the building by that sense. So like, na-imagine ko how it could affect the site, and if you're there, it smells like yung dahon na yon. Parang sinasabi nila dun sa may sa malapit sa Greenfield, amoy chocolate daw yung Ricoa factory. Yung parang ganun na klase of things and experiences. So, yung process na binrake down mo, the next question is how are you going to turn it into architecture? Like the fermentation, how is that going to become architecture? The ano ba yun? The drying, wilting ba yun? How is that going to become architecture? How will your plants be integrated in architecture, di ba? And then how will all of that adjust, di ba, according to the sun? Kasi kailangan maarawan yan, or kung shaded type of plant yan, paano sinishade ng architecture yung plants na yan. And anyway, overall, I think yung presentation mo has improved greatly from the last time. Like, yung from just one slide of everything, at least ngayon, medyo na breakdown mo na. So, suggest ko you can still break it down further, and so much better yung nagawa mo na presentation because it's your first try to do Illustrator, and ano, 'di ba, mas madali gawin, and
Yeah.
it looks better, 'di ba? Nakaka-intimidate lang nung simula pa Illustrator. Yan. So, I think yun yung comments ko. So, Sir Jim.
Okay. Uh, can you repeat your presentation from the beginning?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes, sir. Okay, okay.
I was listening. So I was worried at first that you might be focusing on the program, which is actually okay for a pragmatic direction. When you say pragmatic, very practical, very straight to the point, addressing the needs of the situation and the location, and which is okay if that's what we're looking for. But in this case, we are looking for all the possible maximum potential of the site alongside the topic that you chose. So basically, our direction is generating an architecture out of the plant idea. So and then, but if it meshes well, then you're lucky. But if it's not, then it might be problematic as you develop it all along. And it's good that you clarified that it's still about the plant, and I'm curious how it will evolve later on. And presentation wise, it's definitely a big development from the previous one. You have, I guess, we have Tracy to thank for that.
Yeah.
So, dear Tracy, kanina ka pa kita tinatawag, hindi ka nagpaparamdam eh.
Really, sir? Sorry. Deliver po ako kasi I was doing work while ganap po. Sorry.
Okay, it's all right. So, yeah, and then I think the tea is very interesting. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you encountered my comments on the other projects wherein even Cook mentioned it earlier with Kier's work. Although Kier's aware of it, that we're not looking for a machine to put into the building. We make the architecture the machine itself, and then it's not enough that you make it a machine also. The architecture, in its in all the essence of it, but you need to make it as if it's normal. Do you get it? Just for the information of everyone, um, if you think that decorative architecture in the classical ages, they're just decoration because they allude to certain elements because it's holy, uh, it's about their god, etc. This time, we try to create like that, those kind of architectural elements that has a purpose, that has a function. Do you get it? So how do you do that? So again, it's not about putting a machine inside so that it will grind the thing. How do you create an architecture that it's a normal space, it's a normal, uh, let's say it's a lobby, and then the moment you you walk on it, uh, just by the action of walking, it does something already with the entire process. They get it? So that's the spectacle that I was talking about. Normal, less effort, but it does something great. And in your case, the grinding of the tea. And I think you get it. You're a very smart, intuitive person. Okay. Sige, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Cedric pala. Aaron.
Sir, sir.
Sige. Okay, let's go to Tracy.
Naka-off
Pinakita
mic.
na natin last week yan eh. Walang bago.
Mike, Tracy, Mike.
Kaso walang bago. Do you have...
Sorry, sir. Hello. Yeah, I have new shoots, sir. I added information here. It just a little bit subtle. So going back to the, I was trying to deepen my research based on the initial data gathered. So looking here, mostly what I got that what's new here is studying the soil pH na kailangan 5.268, and in order for the for the seedling labuyo to grow. And these are the usual stages of development. So prior to the ripening stage, there's a reproductive stages. Their flower of the seedling labuyo is color white. Then after a few weeks, you'll see that the fruit will start from a from the color green to red. So it's this part is very important when I start explaining about how does the birds come together, and studying the deeper the science behind these. And then another stage that I forgot to mention in using the same graphic is the drying stage of the seeds. So you can have the seedling from the fruit, regardless if it's medyo green pa siya or red, as long as there are seeds. So you have to dry this for 5 to 7 days directly from the sun. Because without that, there's a lot of moisture, and instead it might develop more of it might rot or develop molds. So kailangan talaga ito. And then in this part of the presentation, I also showed that around 1 week to 5 weeks, these are done. This is grown in a seedling bed. And then a little bit further on, when the plant gets a little bit taller, bigger, you transplant it to an area that is wider or has a at least 20 centimeters deep for the roots to reach it. Kahit nasa pot, sir, it's still, it could thrive. And then I went on exploring more about the CD itself. So I'll go back here, just here instead. So as you can see, the main parts of the 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 plant that is usable is the fruit and the leaf. So these are both edible, and it both has very good source of antioxidants, flavonoids, ascorbic acid, which you get for vitamin C, and vitamin E. As for the leaf, so it has a bitter taste compared to the pungent taste of the fruit bearing part of itself. Depending the spiciness, depending on the Scoville level, is how ripe it is. So with the leaf, what makes it really interesting is the amount of beta carotene it has. So you're getting a lot of benefit beyond the beyond the fruit itself, because this plant is actually, it's an annual plant. So once it has bare fruit, it will die. So instead of just leaving the leaves to decompose, you could use the leaf for consumption. And the next question is like, how do you keep these parts of the leaf for a long period of time? How do you preserve this? So there's a process called solar drying, and I watched a couple of videos and some studies on how it works. So as you can see, it takes the process depends. It could be a little bit faster depending on the materials that is being used, depending on the season of when you decided to dry the chili peppers or even the leaves. It's possible to also do solar drying with the leaves. So as you can see, there's an inlet and outlet in order for cool air to go in, hot air to exit. This part is actually usually from the designs that I've seen. They use glass or screen nets to protect it from any predators or insects or even birds. Because at this stage, I kind of want to cultivate a portion of the sile for human consumption. And then I saw some designs that besides the other materials that is being used yung hierro because it allows more amplifies the heat, but it's more subtle. It's still subtle, not to the point it will burn it, but it will make the process a little bit faster. And then in other countries as well, I believe like in Turkey and other areas in Asia, they also since peppers is grown anywhere that is tropical has the climatic condition that is needed, it has to also be wet. So the soil, the humidity, it peppers are actually hung by the windows, or any area that has openings where direct sunlight could hit. So those are the two methods that I was able to find out. And so siling labuyo or any type of chilies can be dried up in any stages. It's just a matter of how spicy you want it with the Scoville scale. So, pwede din naman, hindi naman lahat red pepper. It could be green or the yellow sage. It will just vary on how spicy it is. So, I mentioned last week with regards to the yield. So apparently the yield with when you yield when you get chili peppers that is around in its earlier stages, like the green, when it's still green, there's more yield to that. It's easier to get because well, usually you have to think about the factors like, is there gonna be pests, is there gonna be like birds is gonna eat it. Yeah, usually the yield is higher there. So the only difference is that hindi siya kaanghang until like when it's really ripe, when it's red and ready. And then so sorry, nawala sa here. So after that, after drying this stage, in this stage, well, it could last about 1 to 2 years with that stage. But then it would be very hard for someone to consume, to cut the peppers, to put it on plate. It's possible for to do that, but I thought of the process of grinding, which is usually used in, well, like in India or Turkey. They're very rich in spices. These places are very rich in spices. Just in the Philippines, for some reason, we mostly just eat the raw thing that we put in our sinigang. We just cut it and put it there. But if I was thinking, an area of 300 to 5 square meters isn't that big. So in terms of hectares of actual farmlands in urban farming or urban farming, it's not gonna be practical if your goal is to always yield fresh fruit or fresh chilies. So after drying it, we could go to the process of making it into powder. So powder form, it takes about 3 years and airtight storage. So imagine the yield will always come over time, even though it's an annual plant. And then there's also, I've read research that there's a way to space it in order to be able to yield better. And you don't you don't harvest everything at one go. It usually happens around 2 to 3 months. So it's batch by batch instead of trying to get it all in one sweep. So the next thing I want to talk about is this one. I tried laying out visually on how this process will how long this process will take. So growing it, um, apparently it starts around September to December or late January. It takes about five and a half or 6 months depending on well the conditions. If since it still lies on habagat, the ideal ideal season for it to start growing. Well, who knows if there's gonna be really strong typhoons that could change the yield of what is predicted to be. And then around February to March, this is the season wherein you could get the peppers fresh off. So depending on when you want to harvest it, of course, if you harvest it a little bit earlier, a few like a week earlier, it's gonna be less spicy. It's gonna be green, but it has higher yield. And then yeah, within those months, um, in that cycle, you could I could also start having some of these peppers sun dried or window hang by the window so that in the next few months, the dead months of April to August is the time wherein I could grind these or even just early April and then just keep this until for 3 years time for consumption, whether it's personal or business. Since I was one of the struggles also of this project was that it I live in a residential area that is enclosed and it's not really unlike other typologies or locations that I've seen with my classmates. It's very isolated. So I'm not so sure. I know the zoning is gonna be so wrong if I encourage it to become a business. But who knows? In the pandemic, it kind of changes. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is how is this related to birds? And yeah, mentioned last week was that yeah, birds they don't have as much taste receptors as human beings do. We have about 10,000 taste receptors for us to taste a lot of things, but birds apparently, according to science, it's just for pigeons is around 37. So they don't really taste um they don't really taste the capsaicin, the thing that makes food spicy. And it's funny that even though humans they don't want us to consume the fruit, the sili labuyo or any chili peppers has grown to become spicy because once mammals can digest it, it kind of loses a lot of its properties and it won't be able to grow in other places. That's why birds is quite it learned how to evolve to a fruit that it will mostly focus on birds as the one who pollinates um, the seedlings. And then so I went further a little bit, adding more to the research I had last week. So yeah, the humans have a trichromatic vision. That means we see in red spectrums of red, green, and blue. But then birds has a tetrachromatic vision. Now they could see in UV and a little bit better in different ranges than human beings. And then interestingly, with um with another research that I was able to gather, that all birds prefer red fleshy natural fruits and avoid green unripe fruits. So that's why based on that, I'm sorry. Is it-
Are you done?
No, someone's talking in the background. I
Yeah.
just get a little lost.
Guys, can
So
we request the others to mute first?
yeah, I get a little bit lost. Sorry. I lost track of thought. Kala ko may someone's
Okay.
talking. Anyways, going back po, so I was looking back at this information and I realized after reading through other researches is that yeah, birds actually do prefer red, flashy, natural fruits and avoid green, unripe fruits. So you I start understanding like okay, since I could harvest siling labuya even though it's not yet red, the bird doesn't want that. Although it's less spicy, I could get that batch if I want it less spicy. So though I guess the next architectural problem is how can I make birds avoid getting the color um the ripe siling labuyo. And then so I studied actually what that birds they tend to like the colors red, orange, yellow, blue. Usually because if you look at the different types of birds that I presented way back, they had um colors that more of the warm side or has like yellow feathers, some like the nightingale, the bulbul. It's really for attraction. It's for attracting the mates. And I know there's also other birds that are more of the shade of blue, but I haven't seen the hummingbird here in my area. But those are the four main colors that actually has made them evolve to be well attracted to, while as white signals danger, alarm, and aggression to many birds. So there it shows that and when you study the bird anatomy, there's some birds that in their chest they have this white color. And usually males like they tend to toughen up, and then like kind of like a battle of the two birds. It's actually really triggers warning signs for other birds or other species. So knowing that color psychology, I was thinking like, okay, I could use this for architecture. And then going deeper in, I was thinking already about the programs. Like, how can I have all this together, all these wonderful benefits of having Sili Labuyo, having birds, which is naturally in the site already. I just wanted to bring more birds and how to bring it into a humanistic, natural experience for us. So I thought of, okay, we're in a lockdown, people needs to take care of their health. So I thought of yoga. Yoga is widely practiced due to relaxation, keeping people grounded, and to reduce anxiety. So with yoga, it came back all the way from the Hindus, and it's more of the spiritual aspect. But nowadays, knowing the people nowadays in the modern society, we also tend to practice that because it also shows in um it also shows that it does decrease, like studies have already shown that it does decrease anxiety. So just taking a note of the breath and being in the present moment, always grounding yourself in the present moment will help that. And it's amplified by the ambience of the birds, the sounds, and the birds being attracted to the sili labuyo because that's a snack they would enjoy. So going further to that, with the actual property. So after exercising, after doing yoga, your body tends to be sore. There's also a study that shows that Sili Labuya kind of helps in the healing process of repairing muscles. And also it helps in the production of endorphins, which is responsible for blocking pain signals. So when you have higher endorphins, it decreases anxiety. So you could see the parallelism between yoga, the use of capsaicin, or the Sili Labuya in the psychological and physiological perspective. So after understanding this, it takes everything into one whole circle. Like architecture is definitely about the humanistic approach of things. Yes, I do care about the environment, but I have to admit that yes, architecture is made for humans. So everything here, it kind of cycles like imagine living in this kind of space, in this kind of program, or if this place, I could imagine the user is probably someone who went through, you know, the benefits of yoga and wants to share to the community once maybe the pandemic's over, or if there's like measurements, safety measurements that they could bring the community within my village to join with this really, you know, exhilarating and reduces anxiety for, well, the benefit of all. And then I went through, well, this one's just additional diagrams of my site. So yeah, and then I went through to look at case studies. I didn't really draw, but I just got pictures of um pictures of architectural um examples that I want to apply somehow with all the data that I've gathered, and create a program. And well, I'm not limiting myself with these yet, but these are the initial
We can see it.
I yes. Oh, you can't?
We can.
Can you?
Oh, it's
Cannot?
to zoom in. Yeah, okay.
Ah,
Zoom
zoom,
out.
ganun. So, zoom out, huh?
You need to zoom out. It's not the full page that we are seeing. It's a zoom in version.
Oh, really? How about now?
Still zoom in.
Ayaw. Oh my gosh. Sandali lang. Wait, I'll try
Akin
reshare.
parang okay naman.
Oh, really? Sir,
Sige.
baka ikaw lang.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, going back. Oh no, I could see myself.
Ayan,
Here, back.
okay na kanina.
Okay, okay na kanina. Okay, okay, hindi ako, okay, wait, I'll just, balik lang ako. Nawala ako sa isip. I'll just keep it to that.
Yeah.
So as you can, this is one of the case studies that I saw in the Estonian students. So to amplify forest ambience with megaphone like library spaces. So actually wait, where's the other one? Sorry, sir.
So yun
Oh
ang
no,
AI mo.
ha? Hindi. Wait,
Loko lang.
nawala yung isa. Grabe ka. Wait muna, sir. Nawala yung isa. There was a sheet before that led me to that. Ha, ha, ha. Ang gulo ng files ko. Sorry, sir. Bad practice. Um, there, this one pala. So I started going back to history a little bit, looking at looking at older studies of how sound can be amplified, because I want to amplify the birds chirping into the from the exterior space into the interior space. But so these are case studies from way back like 17th century, and how sound can bounce and reflect into the spaces. So just looking at this as an idea, um, one of the things I noticed, of course, it's quite curved. The features that are shown, you could put divisions to allow it to bounce and in different directions. And the generally the shape should be, well, yeah, curved. The other thing that I saw here that I really found interesting is how it's amplified. So instead of having that side, the very big open side as the exterior, I imagine it, what if it is kind of punctured from maybe a windowsill, and then from that small hole it amplifies to going towards the interior of the space, of the birds singing, of when it's attracted to the food right there, the sili labuyo. So yeah, that's one of the things. And then nawala ako ulit. Where is it? Sorry, sir. Medyo nawala sa. But the other two case studies was actually from big and chat architects. It's mostly about the feel that I probably want to explore with how to play with color theory, how I can um how can I probably attract or repel the birds when in certain locations, right here, dito, those three. So it's not really directly related to it, but it just generated some ideas. This one's from the chat architects. It has a beautiful courtyard. It's a yoga studio. I could really imagine this as a community space or a space that can be converted for other activities. But mainly, the idea is like as I shown a while ago, is it's always grounded to humanity, finding inner peace, trying to be less anxious and more, I guess, alive, especially in these times. And then so with big, I just got attracted with the colors like on top, since birds are avian. Yeah, they fly, and what and we wanna attract. If I wanna attract them, I should use, well, the colors I mentioned a while ago, and well, it's not. It's kind of weird from my area. I notice most of the colors of the houses here are they're very plain. They're very it's just not really colorful. It would be really weird, I guess, as someone who lives in a village would pop out in a certain way. So I just love the idea of how the roofs can possibly be hang on, my sister's calling me. Sorry po. Uh hang on. Malapit na.
Dead air. Alam niyo ba si Tracy? Wag na, wag na.
Ay, ano ba, sir? Ano sinabi mo?
Wala.
Okay, anyway, going back. Ah, shoot.
Hintayin mo lumitaw sa ano, sa upload.
So, ano pa? So, ayun, I could imagine the facade. So, to repel the birds, and kind of not still blend in the architecture around us. I could imagine it nga yung the rest of the 360 uh will be just white to repel the birds away. And then another case study is the We Grow by the Archangels. I particularly like the interiors being very organic, very soft. It also speaks a lot of the program that I want to put together with the yoga studio, since it's harder to have buhos architecture, so might as well, what if I just explore with these small things. If we're still doing interior architecture, how can I incorporate these curvilinear forms within systems of the exterior systems that are, well, more realistic to be applied in the Philippines. Pero ayun, sir, I don't have an actual program. Sketches will follow. Ayun, yan lang, sir.
Okay, dami mong gabiyahin. No?
Ha?
Just kidding. But yeah, regarding your statement about if we're still doing interior architecture, it's actually automatic. That you guys are still going to tackle that in all the projects starting design that started in design 3. So even in design 1, actually we already implemented that scope. So going back to your study, I know that you wanted to focus on wellness, but where does the ceiling labuyo become very relevant in that aspect, aside from the food for the birds?
Sir, like I said, when I mentioned about it, Sili Labuya also has these properties to the capsaicin to increase endorphins. So imagine after a workout, and besides increasing endorphins, it also helps in muscle soreness. So alam mo na yan, once you're once once you're sore, you could actually, for example, whoever wants to, try the spice. Maybe if there's a snack, if you just bring over someone, to have that
Or
as
they
a really
eat it, ingest what, so whatever. So they just
Yeah.
they okay. So
You
they're
can eat it. Or like put it on food. Yung mga because I don't see myself making a restaurant to I think that that is already quite far fetched of towards what I want to the program to do. But yeah, I could still explore on that. Um but yeah, the application of
explore on
it
what
is
explore on what particularly. I'm sorry, I'm a little
I
lost.
mean like if maybe with in terms of food, I haven't exactly thought of making like a typology that to focus like or maybe this particular food like there was this one idea that I had. It was really crazy because I was slowly giving up with CD chilies. Was the CD ice cream. So it actually is from Bicol and yeah, I still haven't went through that, but it's an interesting process. I just couldn't pinpoint how I could integrate that with the idea of wellness.
Yeah, you try to be fit and thin, tapos you give ice cream. Ano ba yun? So,
Sarap, no?
so yeah, just maybe just like I said with Bea's work, very good collection of information. It's just that towards the end, you might negate the other information just because you wanted to focus on this. And then my only worry is that baka your work might not have enough complexity for design for if it's just going to be an open space for yoga. And then, but you haven't really explored what Silly can do and then how you propagate it, etc.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
Okay.
I think pwede pa siyang nag-explore dun sa kasi may process na siyang nilagay and then yung dina-dry out yung sili. Tapos parang gusto ko sana nag-explore pa siya dun sa may thing that heats it up and
Solar,
yeah,
ano?
that one. So I hope na natuloy mo pa yun further and ma-translate mo to architecture kasi it won't be an architectural
Mm-hmm.
building with that box
Mm-hmm.
inside the architecture, but it should be the other way around. It's like the architecture is the box. Parang nung that would heat up that yung mga ganun. So
Yeah,
yun.
actually I thought of it then like this is a perfect example how solar carving can be used because looking at my site it's surrounded by buildings and trees, so instead I mean shading it is perfect for humans, yung mga Pilipino ayaw ng mainit, and then now my problem is how can I make it hot. So yeah, I could imagine that I'll be exploring how can I use the solar carving at its best to heat up
Mhm.
the contraption of the yeah of the thing.
Ay, good pa rin yung presentation mo. Like, as expected. As expected. From last week. Maganda pa rin naman. Kasi I hope you get to develop it further. Ano lang, baka lang may preconceived notion ka na dapat merong yoga area, dapat may ganitong area. Yun lang, avoid mo lang yung preconceived notions na yun. Kasi eventually magli-lead din to somewhere or parang medyo related dun sa may ano na yun. Sa ganong type of activities. Ayan. Ayun lang.
Like I said with Cedric's work, it's all about the synthesis of all of these ideas. Um, and it's not about negating, otherwise, you just wasted your time producing those sheets. So, always keep in mind that whenever you present an idea, you are leading towards a certain goal, which is being able to use this research material to produce
Mhm.
or informed architecture. Right?
Yeah. Kaya I suggest you really make your storyboard for it para
Yeah.
yung kung ano yung dine-develop mo sa dulo. Kasi of course, parang sketch out mo naman yan. Tapos parang, okay, may gantong idea, may gantong idea, may gantong idea. Baka pwede gawin ko dito sa idea na to, ito yung idea na to, ganun. Tapos pag kaya kinumbine ko, magiging ganito. So you already have a storyboard on how everything is gonna be when you present it. And then, ayan, papakita mo yung mga relevant information na yun towards that. Kasi yung nangyayari, sinastop nyo yung sarili nyo na maybe hanggang research lang. Parang hindi nyo pa tinatry mag-attempt. Like yung ginawa ni Jericho last week, nag-attempt na siya to create architecture kagad. Kaya nakabigay kami ng feedback about the architecture and how he's gonna develop it. And merong direction na yun sa kanya. So, I think nangyayari lang dito, parang it's still, kasi it's all still like, okay, may ganitong idea, tapos iniisip ko lang ilalagay ko yung idea na yun doon. But you didn't really experiment it towards the architecture. So, parang na-stuck tayo sa idea lang na pinag-uusapan natin na, oh, apply yung idea na yun. Tapos parang, okay, a-apply yung idea na yun. Wala nang next step conversation na how the idea is being applied, which is something that you would actually really want the feedback to get from. Ayun.
Yeah, I agree. Medyo nawala lang ako at some point kasi with
Because of
actually,
drama.
ha? Ano po?
Kung may drama ka before
Oo,
like 3
oo
days
nga.
ago.
Oh, nag-existential crisis ulit. Pero yun, sir. Yeah, I wanted at some point to create like a prototype na sana. Pero given the time then, I was like, okay, I'll just focus on the research because I felt I didn't dug deep enough in terms of the sile. That's why for this week I wanted to focus on what can I explore more. Kahit yeah, I agree. There will be some irrelevant information once I use these ideas and to create a program. Pero sir and Cooks, I have a question kasi with the like how the like with your work na nangyari with the coffee beans and then the ano yun yung animal. How did
Yeah.
it come naturally in a way? Because I still get confused because it's still a typo. You could tell it's a typology that it is a cafe pero you get the beans with the animals. Uh like ayun what makes it I guess my process because I was thinking about a yoga, not exactly a yoga studio, not just a yoga studio. It's just to provide, I guess, amplify what is there in the site, the birds especially with the plants. Yun lang. I still get a little bit lost.
It means Cooks, she didn't like your project.
Ah, hindi
Yeah,
naman.
I know. I
Grabe.
read between
Ayun,
the lines.
oh, naalala ko
Paano
sa
yung,
Ordos
oo, paano daw yung process na ano, kasi actually hindi naman necessarily na all of the processing that happens is 100% in the architecture, but as much as possible that you can for it to be able to be together dun sa architecture. Like for example, if you plant it there, and then paano yung sizing nung plant na yon versus the architecture, how you would, kunwari may terracing yan, meron siyang light wells for it to be able to propagate yon, and then meron kang yung for example sa amin yung way of picking namin is actually through the civet cat, so we incorporated civet cats, and that was the one that incorporated into the architecture. Then how do you take care of the civet cats with the architecture, yung size ng architecture in relation to the cats, and then meron ding eventually syempre pagka pinoop na nila yung coffee, meron ka ng coffee bean that you grind up and you use na, 'di ba? Parang ganun yung mangyayari, or you clean and then you grind and then you use na. So parang yung grinding process hindi na siya mismo yung architecture. It's really like okay na process na yung beans nung with the architecture, and then isa-serve na dun sa coffee shop kasi naisip namin na of course, 'di ba? It just makes sense, it becomes a coffee shop because you're having coffee dun sa you're creating coffee with the building, and parang ang nangyayari, the idea is you're getting your cup of coffee that you're having right now is planted in the building that you're in, di ba? Parang ganun yung idea, the nice idea about that. So much like dito, yung I think naman birds are going to be attracted to that kasi you already have birds sa site na they always go there, which means birds will always go there if you have the appropriate plants for them that they like, and how it's spaced out, etc. Diba? Yung condition ng site mo, how noisy it is, kung maingay, ayaw ng mga ibon, kunwari, ganun. And then, yung mga ganung bagay lang for the, yung, kasi of course, hindi mo naman makokontrol yung mga hayop, di ba? Hindi mo naman makokontrol yung mga birds. So, as much as possible, yung parang conducive for them to use, yun yung hinahabol natin kasi we're designing for them, essentially. So that's what you have to think. You're designing for the silly plant and you're designing for the birds. So that's what you have to think all the time. Ayun. Yun lang yung
With regards
naisip.
to her question about and challenging the existence of Civet Cafe, that it's not a really a new typology. Yes, because um the the way I see creative typology, this direction is that it's either you create something really really unique or you hybridize. So it's very hard to create something unique. Like I said, most programs are already existing. So how do you just hybridize? And maybe this is the next step. They get it. So to the point that the moment people go there, the experience is very different. It's all about the experience, as I reiterated earlier. How do you recreate and reinvent the experience of a person, given that, like I said earlier, it's a normal space. It's a popular space, but it does something different. That difference is the spectacle that makes it a creative building. Yeah, the moment you sit on a chair, you know, it's doing something na pala, like it's grinding a coffee, I don't know, because of the sheer weight of the person. So things like that. It's still a coffee shop, it's still a sitting area. So it's a normal thing. It's a normal space. Probably it's a normal program in some cases because it can be a different, strange. It can be a weird program. But if it can be if it can be a normal program, it still does something. So yeah. Okay. So I think it's normal to be confused. Like I said, we just need to decide decide to jump on it and take the big leap. And you are already doing that. And to be honest, it's a very difficult stream to develop. That's why I'm documenting everything. I'm also recording everything because I've had some misses when it comes to this methodology with the previous batches. And my failure is that I wasn't able to document it. But I have some success stories like Kyle, sila Ellis Daing. They produce some really interesting works. And I wish I was able to document it. It's because it's very difficult to pinpoint when you're going to stop. Even my co-teachers are asking me. I think AJ was the one who asked, like, when do you know to stop? And I was able to answer, and I didn't have the opportunity to answer that. But my answer is that actually you never know. You can you cannot say specifically, but you will know the moment you see it. It needs a critical mass. You can it's very difficult to create a measurable standard when it comes to this exploration. They follow. You need to. That's why sometimes you just need to gauge the complexity of the thought process. You just need to gauge the originality of the proposal. You just need to measure if there was enough thought process behind it to generate a new experience. And then you also have to and and I always say that yes, you need to familiarize yourselves with what's going on outside so that you can really say that this has not been done before. Because if you are cocooned to your shell, to your own world, and then you say this is new, this is original, it's kind of like an innocent take to like being ignorant, basically. Um, so and as a professor and Cook being a mentor, being a guest critic, somehow he's exposed already. So we would know, we can also gauge if this has been done before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are we can judge if we can judge the freshness of the idea. We can already imagine if the moment we get into the building, we are awed or we are impressed by the newness of the experience. It's something that's not been done before. Do you get it? So that's why even as early as now, although I'm not stopping it, my question is it just going to be a yoga studio? If it's
Uh,
going to be like that, like it's too simplistic. Do you get it? But if you're going to put it in a measurable process, pragmatic process, probably you're done already. Do you get it? Just create a yoga studio with a ceiling and then your project is finished. Because pragmatically, you tick all the boxes. But have we really created a spectacle? We have really created a new experience? Have we really able to synthesize the pragmatic aspect of a space and the experience of a creative building or a productive building? Do you get it?
well, I'm still like, to be honest, I'm still kind of a little bit lost. So since you said it's kind of in a spectrum, like seeing if it's programmatic, in a way na, is it unique or is it like a mishmash of things? I'm not sure where. Although yeah, I understand. I wasn't trying to say like yoga is gonna be the entire program to it. I was still kind of, I guess I was wondering like, oh, where's the human aspect? All I was talking was plants and birds.
Hmm.
So how can, in a way, they could interact? And the closest thing, I don't know. As someone, like the site is just next to me. Every time I wake up in the morning or when I sleep, I always open the windows and I always hear birds chirping. So I always take in that is the special experience to have. And
Yeah.
like when I stretch, yeah, stretch in the morning, I guess that's the closest thing to yoga. So it was coming a little bit like naturally to
No, no.
what I
We encourage that because you want it to be as authentic as possible. Uh, my point coming from criticizing the work is based on from an outsider's point of view if it's enough to be called a creative typology. My concern probably is where you are, how you map yourself in this entire process. Like, when is this going to finish? To get it, but I already raised even before, even with the time of Kyle, that is very hard to pinpoint where you are. But 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 the moment we see it, actually, we would know that you are already reach a certain level of architectural development in terms of the idea. So what do you call that? But it's normal. It's normal for you to get confused. It's part of the process, and that's our role basically. Our role is to say um, and make you realize later on, oh, you produce enough already. This is what happened the with experience that sila Kyle had. At first, they were at a loss. In fact, both of them, if you remember, presented two different ideas, and both of them are wrong. Uh, didn't approve it, etc. Until they got it. They get it. It's trial and error. It's always
Mhm.
trial and error, and then yeah, and then that is part of it.
Thank you, sir. So for with my work po, sir, um so I have to start. I'm gonna start with the architectural application and see where it goes there. Kahit
Yes. Yes.
um so I show some proposals. It's not really assuming. Is it already assuming programs or more or
Yes, yes.
spaces?
You are assuming. You need to assume. Like I said, you need to jump on it. You need to you need to try things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it?
So
You have to
pro.
try para makita mo kung mag-work siya. Parang kaya nga design exploration din yung tinatawag. Kasi ina-explore mo yung idea if it works or it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, then at least that's one more thing that doesn't work and you can try a different thing, di ba? If it works, edi there's something that you can push further and develop. Ganun naman yung nangyayari
Or
dito
we
sa
call it
may,
exploration eh. Ay,
yeah, exploration.
experimentation also.
Yeah,
Remember,
also that.
si Jericho, he was just experimenting about, although syempre, naboljak siya ni Kyle. But, he took the leap. Di ba?
Yeah,
He took the leap.
and maganda yung ano niya, yung attempt niya nung ganun na mga arches, but then yung pagbigay ko ng feedback, it's the right direction but it's just the wrong application. He could try something else and then medyo na-develop na yung architecture further, di ba?
I mean, when the student takes the leap, you will notice right away, probably with Kyle na by now, kasi in a way, parang mentor na rin siya, the excitement in our eyes right away. Because it's something new to us. And we know that, oh, this guy is really thinking.
Mhm.
Because you will see it right away. And it's not lacking in your presentation today naman. Siguro lang talagang confused ka, which is very normal. And
Mhm.
if you're a very smart person, it's normal to, really try to make sense.
Parang na-overthink mo din eh
Oo,
at
yeah.
times eh, oo. Kaso ano
Actually,
lang din, just i-share lang din what this is, yung how it's actually applied in real practice, ganon. Kasi yung nakukuha from this type of yung creative typology, essentially, it's like you're creating, di ba, you're creating an architecture for a specific object, ganon yung nangyayari. And then whatever the object has, ganon, nagagawa mo into architecture. And then it's essentially like, just to analogize, the architecture is branded for that object. Ganun. And then the way na we think ngayon, for example, with clients, when they have, oh, I'm going to make this kind of, etong development style na yung gusto ko. And then, it comes parang second nature na we're actually thinking ahead of what they want, and what the way that we're designing is actually branded on what they want. Nagiba lang yung object, imbes na pepper or siling labo yung iniisip mo yung client tsaka yung mga gusto niya. Parang ganun na yung nangyari. And then, iniisip mo rin yung typology na gusto ng client. Kunwari, gusto ko ng spa. Iniisip mo rin yung spa. Okay. Tapos, iniisipan mo na ng branding yung spa. And then, they would like you because you're thinking of the branding, you're thinking of them. You're thinking of how you want the architecture to be tailor fit for them. Rather than, okay, gusto niya ng spa, okay lang, sige, magpo-provide lang ako ng rooms tsaka may mga beds, tapos yun na, spa na. And then that's, let's just make it look nice by putting this and that and ganon. So parang hanggang naging ganong surface level maybe yung solution mo that you're gonna give to the client. But with the way like this one, okay, parang si client mo si Siling Labuyo, and then gagawin mo yung building para kay Siling Labuyo, masaya si Siling Labuyo to stay in your building. Essentially, ganun yun. Actually, well, pagka parang medyo leaning on the pragmatic-ish side. So, ayun yung share ko dun sa may ano na yun. Kaya, always think that si Siling Labuyo yung ginagawan mo ng architecture and the entire process. Yung
yeah.
And you won't know until you try, kasi you would think that, oh, maybe this is the wrong idea, but then you didn't try, so you don't really know if it's wrong. Baka you're off by a little bit, edi ma-help ka namin bigay ng direction. Kasi mahirap magbigay ng direction if there's not a base foundation to be able to build up forward and develop, di ba? Kasi sobrang daming possibilities pa eh. And when you give a direction, di ba, we could give a feedback on that direction. Ayan.
Thanks, Cooks. Actually, sir, I think my question na lang, last question na lang is, because I've actually jumped to, I don't know, 4 plants over the last 2 terms. And then one of it I did, or actually two of it, I've applied it with the architectural aspect. If it's like kind of in that direction, but then I have to explore it in terms of Sili Labuya of what I have. Can I just ask lang feedback if that's okay? Just this one image.
Okay.
So this was from last term. If you could see it, this is actually using rice the rice paddy. So I created a a program wherein where's that? Where this this was last term. Yeah, a program like a courtyard mill wherein the straight down from like using the law of gravity straight down from the rice paddies, which is instead yung roof, um pababa yung process that will go into the interior architecture. And then ayun, I just didn't continue this because I was thinking about the practicality of how the yield is very low in terms of the rice. Ayun. So yeah,
So what's your question?
like if this is the kind of direction that is expected sa Sili Labuyo.
Yeah, it is a possibility, and what you can do with it. That's why, if you remember, just to give others clues, I asked for the product, then probably can work on the product. Uh, like if you're talking about that ice, assuming that ice cream is the one that makes sense with the yoga, wellness, fitness program that you have, assuming ice cream, then how do you make an ice cream out of the silin labuyo? Then you use architecture to do that.
Yeah. Parang naisip ko parang kung yung nung ArcDes 5 yata namin, kung gano'n yung naisip yung may ice cream na ganyan tapos maglalagay na ng baka dun sa architecture tapos paano na kinukuha yung ano and then tinitingnan kung viable pa maglagay ng baka tapos gano'n yung yung mga gano'n na you make it really all cohesive to create the architecture for your ice cream. Gets mo? Even yung
Mhm.
isa like yung isang friend ko yung although hindi ko na nakita yung in-depthness nung ginawa niya. May isa tuyo ang ginawa. Tapos syempre pagka ito ba yun? Yung ano ba yung tawag nun yung tinapa, ayun tinapa. Tapos 'di ba sino-smoke yun? So, architecture niya umuusok. Yung mga ganun na ano, paano niya nilalagay yung tinapa. Or even yung isa balot yung naisip niya. Tapos meron parang mga rampa yung mga ducks na umaakyat tapos ang cute ng architecture. I mean, those things na ano, I mean, you wouldn't think of, 'di ba? Parang maiisip mo lang ducks, okay, maglilay lang sila ng egg tapos kukunin ko tapos gagawin kong balot. Kaso hindi mo naiisip yung flow ng mga ducks tapos gagawa ka ng architecture sa mga ducks para umakyat sila sa bubong. Parang mga ganong bagay yung marami kang iisipan for them, 'di ba? And then later mo na i-adjust for human intervention. Kasi yung unang gusto mong gawin parang paradise for essentially a paradise for those plants and animals, and then pagka nandun na yung tao, pumunta na yung tao, it's really a different world na ang kinakalabasan. Ayun.
Actually, well, with the ice cream pala, while we were talking, I realized it's possible to make a nice ice cream. Na, because I've tried it before. Yung if you like freeze a banana and then just put whatever flavors you want, it kind of tastes like ice cream. So I guess the question is like, should I be exploring na naman yung banana plant? But then given the square footage, I don't think I could put actual like the
No,
get the ingredients
you can work on
or something.
the silly and the birds already. It's just that you need to explore what you can do with them. Okay.
Okay, sir. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, sir. I think, yeah, that's all my questions na po. Thank you.
Okay. DM in the line if you have other concerns.
Sige, sir.
Okay, Janil.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. Daming tanong ni Tracy.
Hello.
Okay.
Existential question here. Why am I here? Okay. Game.
Okay, so um similar to Tracy's, because this week I just sort of got stuck with like what I wanted to do. So I took most of my time refining my like the sort of narrative and goal I wanted to happen within um my future program. So that I could like go further with like the building topology and the research and everything. So wait, I have notes.
Sige lang.
Okay, so here this sheet just basically summarizes everything that I thought of. It's not I don't think it's there yet, but it's something. So here on top I actually segregated into who, what, and why. So I solidified my target market or the demographic that I wanted to cater to, and that would be the vendors in the coming marketplace. And that consists of vegetable vendors, also fabric and textile sellers. And then I wanted to include different artisans within the area. So that includes local, those who make local handcrafted products and those who offer tailored services within the area. And then alongside these people who may be contributors to the future program, I wanted to highlight um, residents within the area. So that includes small families with small family businesses and elementary students, because there's a public elementary school right beside the market. So these are my primary target demographic. And then I also wanted to highlight the secondary demographic, which consists of traditional weavers and the sorry abaca farmers, because I wanted to um I'll explain this further. I wanted to have their culture be preserved in a sense that would affect um their industries. So for the how of this project, I mentioned last week that I wanted to embark on um, the concept of sustainability, but that was pretty vague back then. So, and from the goals that I listed down, I came up with sustainability aspects in different areas. So, um, I have goals for environmental sustainability, cultural sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. And I will further explain each. So for the environmental sustainability aspect, um, it the goal that I hope would happen with this project is to cut down on community waste, which is basically the perishables in the market, the like vegetable rotten vegetables, and as well as introduce more eco-friendly products that lessen carbon footprint in the market. So all in that sense, the environmental sustainability, it's going to create a lasting cycle within the community where not only does the project generate products based on abaca, but also like use existing um products within that area, and like create a recycling or reusing program. So how does so for each aspect, I sort of gathered like general ideas that I wanted to do architecturally and program wise. So for this, like I said, I'd use the unused vegetables as organic dye in the textile production, and the production of woven abaca fabric in general will contribute to the alternative product to synthetic textiles that will be sold in the market. Then next, for the cultural sustainability, I wanted to preserve the community activities that are because the activities that exist within the area. I noticed that they're very rooted in traditional Filipino culture. So that if that meant like creating barongs, or creating local products and whatnot. So I wanted to introduce traditional practices in a very urbanized area. So not only does that mean tailoring or making um, furniture, local products, but that also means introducing other industries within this urban context. So that means like introducing the culture of weaving in the vicinity, because it's an indigenous culture that is turning extinct, and the as well as the abaca industry, um it's one of the most uh important sectors industries in the country, yet it's not supported well as of the moment by the government. So it would be like a good um area to promote that culture and industry. So for the economic, oh wait, sorry. So with that cultural sustainability, um a general concept I would like to have in my program is to have the local tailors and artisans and weavers, since they're also part of my primary demographic, to interact with the students and residents and sort of have this interaction where um, one could teach the other these traditions, um, such as like weaving and making organic dyes and how to harvest abaca and everything. Um, and then so for the economic sustainability, I wanted to preserve the dynamic economic activity in the environment. I mentioned before that this area is super busy in terms of like economic activity. Like there's so many small businesses ongoing, and with the program, the future program, I like what how I mentioned how the activities would promote appreciation for the crafts, Filipino crafts. And since this program will focus on the production side, because a parallel to it would be the market selling side, this structure in itself will help promote economic activity within the environment, because it promotes appreciation for others to go purchase from the commoning public market. And then for the social sustainability, I noticed that within the commoning area, the nature of people that are in this vicinity is very fleeting. It's very fast paced. It's always like the place is more of like a one stop shop area. Like people go there, buy what they need, leave. It's very noisy, it's very busy. So I wanted to sort of introduce this sustainability in how people act within the area, and that means if production of um, goods is promoting sustainable or like slow production, that the people who enter this vicinity will also experience sort of um like a slow lifestyle, more of like a slow, relaxed lifestyle, give them more of like a sense of place within the area. Because like what I said, they just go shop and then they leave. So I wanted this structure to be sort of like that hub where that says that Kumuning is like a place where you could stop by and enjoy. So that's sort of like the social aspect of sustainability, giving like the place a sense of identity. And then um, I listed down here the different parts, the different processes that I mentioned last week of from abaca harvesting to the weaving process. So um, I sort of narrowed down which, because it's a very tedious process. So I was sort of worried that in the future I would have too many processes to deal with to turn into architecture or whatnot. So I wanted to narrow down which activities would be essential na magiging human, like interactive human activity, and the processes that would remain architectural, um that would be turned into architecture, or architecture will aid in the general process itself. So I'm the ones that are highlighted, which are dyeing, rinsing, weaving, and burnishing. Um I as of now, those are the activities that I wanted to incorporate in the program, where like the students and the residents would um interact in the and learn how to do these particular activities, while the other processes will sort of be part of the architecture, and make a typology, I mean a structure where um the the processes are actually, and I'm not sure how to say, but like the processes itself are what make up the architecture in a way.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I have a few research. Um, so from that, um I did it step by step. So I tried to think of ways on how each process could produce an architectural idea. Um, so for one, the first part of the process is the propagation of the plant itself. And like before, I mentioned that the abaca naturally grows on slope areas. I watched a documentary the other day on the Bicol region, and the way they would obtain the abaca plants are really on mountainous areas. It's more than 30 degrees. It's really like a hiking experience for in the province. So um with that being said, it's sort of like maintaining the culture of like the origin place of where abaca naturally grows. And so I researched about planting on slopes. Um and for my findings, um the research said that if the original slope of the the original given slope is more or equal to 30 degrees, it is recommendable to create more a terrace type of planting structure. Um, so so do I go?
No, sorry, I just turned on sound.
Okay, so this is a plant hole. Number one is the plant hole, and um, number two would be to cut back the slope of the hill, and three is where the terrace would be incorporated so that the roots don't get uprooted. Um, and then number four is to create a berm to trap the water, and number five, um, generally there would be an absorption trench below it to catch effluent water. So I also noticed that a lot of plantings when the uphill they incorporate a or an organic fiber blanket which prevents soil erosion when it's uphill. Except this is usually done for smaller plants since like trees like abaca they themselves uh they absorb like the flood that's going downhill, and usually this organic fiber is made out of abaca itself since it's one of the most water resistant yet um strong and sun resistant materials. So with that, I think it would help me in the creation of since like other projects and the size of my lot, um, there's not necessarily a lot of space to grow trees where the plant itself requires 2.5 meters radius. So this would be a beneficial yet like natural way of vertically in itself. And then this topic that I dove into was tipping, which is the harvesting of the leaves. So that's where you like cut the leaves down from the trees when they're ready to be fiber extracted from. And a lot of the sloped environment, I noticed that in the plantation areas in the province, it's really a difficult process to get the harvested products from one place to another. So like in a documentary I watched, they had to cross like vast rivers, and they had to row from one place to another. And according to this diagram from the Filmec and this wire rope corporation in the Philippines, the there are existing traditional ways um, these harvested products are being transported from one area to another, and that would be um, the tram cable, like a basic tram cable. I also saw a video from an abaca or banana farm in Ecuador who's doing the same thing. They have um, cables that go throughout their farm, collecting the harvested bananas and leaves. And I think that would be a good opportunity to add the architectural feature in the long run. So here I have a basic cable roadway system. And with that, I'm not sure if this is too advanced for like what I have right now, but it sort of gave me an idea on how I could have the harvested leaves stored, since this would be in the same slope areas where where the trees will be staying. Sort of mechanism like this would not only will it transport the leaves from one place to another in an organized way, but also uh, help in shading the area, since abaca leaves in itself is a sunshade traditionally used by indigenous people. So it could act as a potential wall, or like a mobile wall or anything of the sort, because of its structural efficiency. Oh, sorry. I forgot to mention, it's abaca rope in itself is also a good material for um making this mechanism happen, due to its tensile strength and its ability to withstand steep slopes. And then this I thought about researching on the general weaving mechanism that's being used in the Philippines. And this is the basic structure of a loom that's being used. So I'm not sure if it probably better to have an animation of this process, but in general, this area right here, it goes up and down alternately. And then this shuttle goes through each one every time it changes vertically, so that the yarn will pass through alternately. Um, Basically, the reason why I have this research paper is because I wanted to. I was very interested in the idea that the loom in itself creates a um rhythmic sequence in a way that is very calming, and it's not necessarily the same as um technological machines. This is like a traditional um manual mechanism where, since a lot of like artisans do it, it's sort of like a remedy for them, the rhythmic sequence. So uh that in itself, I think, has a lot of potential in the creation of the architecture in the future. Since I also mentioned before that I wanted to tap into the social aspect of how people feel and act within the area. And since the area is very noisy and busy, I wanted to create like a sort of remedy for them. And maybe this might be an avenue towards achieving that. So yeah, that's basically why I have that. And that's all I have for now.
When you say um when you say remedy because the place is busy, what do you mean? Like it's a therapeutic thing?
Yeah. I sort of thought about the idea that people don't go like people go to that area not because they want to, it's because they need something. And um so it's like a you go there and then you leave, no one really stays. And then it's always noisy because there's a lot of public transportations, and you see just students walk past by to get to where they actually want to be. So in a way, it's noisy, and um there's no uh like sole purpose why people want to stay there. And I sort of wanted to create something that would remedy for the busyness and the noise within the area. And I feel like having like a calming uh calming like noise, or like with the act of weaving, it would help in that sense, if that
So,
makes sense.
the place will be a store for barong and all that, and it's also made in the same place.
Um, what I was thinking was, since I wanted to promote the economic activity within the area, it's not to get the businesses that are already existing within the area. It's like promoting what they do. So for example, there are local barong areas, tailoring areas for barong nearby, and from what I researched, since Sir told me like maybe it's something you should look into, and I saw that um barong and kamuning, some of them use piña cloth, which is pineapple. So you can see that in a sense they're already tapping into the sustainable um, fabrics, and so the production of abaca fabrics within my structure would sort of promote the tailors in their own businesses to like invest in abaca fabrics, if that makes sense.
Okay. But the barong is not really a dominant product in the area, or is it?
Mm, it is, since a lot of people, like if you research online, they call Kamaning Public Market like the place where you go if you need tailoring services.
Okay. Maybe you need to work on that. It's just that um, if you claim that it's for recreation purposes, relaxation purposes, it's a little doubtful. Like I don't know if you will agree because I don't know if everyone is really into weaving. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if they have a mindset of I'm going to get relaxed if I do this. I think it's a selective
Yeah,
few. So
yeah.
but that's why I asked if the place is known for the barong. But
Um, I think I failed to mention a while ago, but um, the main purpose I was hoping for the building is uh fabric production in itself, and that's the process of harvesting the abaca and then
yes, yes.
weaving, and then um, even like the dyeing process and the drying process. But at the same time, the relaxation aspect, the recreational aspect of it is sort of like it's like a secondary companion thing to the main
Okay.
um
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and
fine then. It's fine. It's just
yeah, then
so
the general idea I think is to promote the indigenous culture within the area, since um the abaca and the weaving industry is sort of like becoming extinct already in the Philippines. So it's sort of um, turning towards that goal, instead of if people already um, are in tune with weaving. It's more of like how could you get them to get into
yeah, and I know what
that?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's educating everyone. Like I've seen this in a lot of museums up north, in the heritage houses, but you're not allowed to touch it. But it's a very fascinating machine. So I guess providing a venue so that people can actually interact with it's a good idea. But it shouldn't. But I don't think it's a great idea that it becomes the entire program. I think the weaving thing, the production of fabric is a great idea. And maybe aside from the production, what can you do in a space wherein they produce fabric? Is it also a store? Is it a place where people would go for fabrics, etc.? Actually, it's a question. Like, is it?
That one I haven't really tapped into yet, because I haven't really this is sort of like the goals that I wanted to achieve. I didn't really tap into like the actual program yet. But then since I tapped into um promotional the economic activity, the idea was sort of like to focus on the production in itself, because it promotes it being sold in the market that is adjacent to the area.
Okay, because the reason why I asked because I want to avoid a the tendency that it will just be just a machine building.
Yeah, that was sort of my problem also because I didn't know the extent of how creative is the creative typology it is right now.
Actually,
Because
you are in the right direction. It's just that finding the right program, and then
yeah,
we just need to answer like a few questions, and you are almost done looking for a topic. That one of those questions is uh, I'm always inspired by the morphology and the structure of the weaving mechanism. Do you imagine you're building to have uh, this kind of elements in the entire building? Like this, when you combine all these strings, it sort of create some sort of a wall. Um, and the fact that you are having this kind of condition, then maybe it can inform the program. What kind of what kind of program can you have um, when you have this semi transparent wall that is not accessible? That is not accessible. Do you get it? So maybe you can think along that line. The moment you solve it, you are already, you know, um, in the advanced stage of developing it and somewhat answering Tracy's question up to what extent. So yeah, we are exploring ideas, but the moment you produce or propose a potential idea that generate visual cues such as this one, uh, that will sort of give us an idea of how the architecture might look like, then you tick that box. And then the next would be what kind of activities are compatible with this kind of setup. Do you get it? So you just need to answer those two questions and then you are already good. And then the third pala is like the yield that you can produce from the plant itself and will it fit in the site. Do you get it? You just need to meet all those requirements and you are good to go. And I hope Trish is listening. And yeah, and then this somewhat shows that we're not really uh, functioning like a loose cannon. It's just basically finding the right idea that is compatible with what you already produce as a base idea. Okay, so if you have let me give an example. Cooks, are you there? I don't know if Cook.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I don't know if you remember the work of Garces. We're in their site was Smoky Mountain, and then one of the industries in Smoky Mountain was charcoal, selling of charcoal. That's why in the adjacent site they have a huge parcel of land. He proposed it to become a bamboo forest, a bamboo plantation, because the um the turnover of bamboo, it grows fast. May data siya nun in infographic format. It's really really fast, and then what they call that, and then that's what he used to produce a charcoal, and then he created architecture that sort of turned the bamboo into a charcoal, which is really beautiful. But I think the most redeeming architecture that he was able to produce was like the field, the aerial view of that land beside Smoky Mountain. The Smoky Mountain na pala. We're in, I don't know if you're familiar with the crop circle, which they claim to be
Bilog-bilog yung architecture niya yun eh.
alien,
I
alien
remember
fields in the
yung
US.
for
You know, crop circle phenomenon.
yung mga aliens daw.
Like, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's popular in the US, and conspiracy theories about UFOs. But it exists in the US because they have these circles, perfect circles, pattern circles, in the fields, and they claim that um, it's not
UFO daw
man-made,
naglanding.
exactly like that. So in a way, that student proposal has is reminiscent of that idea because he created those circles, and because of that condition, um, and the privacy that it creates, um, he in a way he designed the farm in such a way that to create those patterns, and then because it created layer in between those in the center of those circles are massage areas. So in a way, it's a farm slash massage a spa. And then in the background, there's just something smoking because they're burning they're burning
to be charcoal.
the bamboo to become a charcoal. So I forgot the other details, but there's a reason why it became a spa, and I would imagine myself also going there. But there are other reasons why it's very conducive for a spa program. So it's the
Mm,
same scenario with this project. Find a program that is appropriate with this kind of condition.
mm. I-hybridize mo na siya,
Yeah. So
actually.
Sir Remian, since you talked about like the UFO concept and everything, so technically, any program that would be fit, like potentially help the system
Yes,
of,
that is compatible
even
because
if it's not necessarily like interconnected.
yes, exactly. Ideally connected, but if not, you
Yeah.
can't force it.
Yeah, kasi
The
I
point
think
is, sorry, Kyla. The point is,
mhm,
there's an idea, and then you extracted the idea. What kind of architectural system were you able to produce? This is with assumption that all these strings, this weaving mechanism structure, is how you imagine the architecture. If that is the case, what is a compatible program appropriate for this? Then you start with where is this coming from? Is it about the barong? Is it about so and so? But if you cannot really make it work, then look for programs that is fit with the architectural system that you generated. All right, sorry, Kyle.
I think pinili niya yung massage kasi merong properties for the skin yung charcoal.
Ayun,
So
yun.
parang ganun na connection. Hindi niya pinilit na magkaroon ng spa. It's just
Yes.
ideal to have a massage area to be able to take advantage of those properties to charcoal other than just selling charcoal after producing it, 'di ba?
And
Sa'yo
then,
yung fabrics mo, what can you do with that na magko-complement diyan?
then yung
And
mga
then yung yeah.
may
Mm.
dito pa siya yung mga height ng bamboo so that
Mm.
you can have you can have that privacy for the customer of the spa. So they're not
Mm.
visible from those who are harvesting. So in a way,
Mm.
ang ganda nung layer. Like you have people harvesting like they're farmers, and then you have those who are going to the spa for a massage. It's a strange world, but it's a creative world. Do you get it? So
Yeah, okay. I think I understand.
how do you create the connection? Tracy, do you understand somehow what we're trying to do? Okay, I think she's
Tracy.
okay. So anyway, okay, okay na, Janil.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Janil.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Last but not the least, unless I'm missing someone, Adrius. Adrius.
Mag-join na po sa laptop. Ito na po.
Okay, sige. Okay, game.
To be clear lang po, ito po yung pinili ko.
Okay.
I chose coconut pa.
Alright. Go.
Kung minor edition, nilabel ko na po ng flower color, leaf color, tsaka food color.
Okay.
Mag-line coconut eh, wala nang iba.
Next.
Yung height ng coconut, it can vary between minsan pwede siya, hindi siya ganyan kataas. Minsan pwede ba yung sobrang unusual yung height. Iba-iba. Kaya depende yun sa depende sa mood.
Okay. What else?
Ito, dala lang po.
Okay.
So, ito yung mga parts.
Nag-i-improve na yung layout mo, ah. Sige, go ahead.
So, okay, ayos lang po ba yung font?
Ano? Ano sabi
Yung
mo?
font po, okay na po. Yung font,
I think yung mga heading font mo, just change it. Masyado pa siyang maarte. I would rather use the same font that you used dun sa may paragraphs and make it bold, capitalized. Parang mas malinis. Like, yung R mo may unnecessary tail. Yung mga ganun na ano. So, avoid mo yung better to make it cleaner yung font. Kasi mas maganda na cleaner and crisp yung ano. And the design of the layout is actually what is attractive sa board rather than the font that you use that
Continue
looks
lang,
like a
I'll
pretty
just use the
font.
toilet.
Ayun.
So, yung other than yung background okay lang po may konting silver yung background.
Okay lang naman. Kaso white pa rin is best kasi white is the cleanest and mas magpo-focus yung ano like sa graphics mo. Ayun. Kaso hindi naman issue sa akin na it's like that colored. Baka ano lang maybe you could actually ano ba yan? Remove your logo para mas malinis yung ano, less clutter yung
logo. Ano po logo?
Yeah, in sa lower right, ang Adriano. Yan, para lang mas cleaner yung ano, yung layout mo.
Which logo?
I mean, yung nasa lower right. Ayun, yung nasa lower right. Even yung nasa, pwede yung source, like, I don't know if, okay lang na ilagay mo yung source. Kaso, syempre, gusto natin ilagay yung source. But sometimes it also is somewhat clutterish pagka madami na yung words na nilalagay natin. So, just be careful about putting those. Hindi naman sa hindi kailangan lagay, but, just be wise. Just be wise where you put it lang. Pagka gusto mo ilagay yung mga ganung bagay. Ayun. Sige, go on.
So once again, pwede siya lagi sa kung saan siya madali ma-access ng front and back garden. Yun. Tsaka yung soil niya dapat clay, loam, or sand. Doon siya pwede.
Okay, next slide.
Tsaka yung tubig mo dapat each week. Ito yung mga overview ng coconut. Makita mo yung sa loob na yung parte niya.
Okay.
Copper ang tawag sa flesh ng coconut.
Okay.
Tsaka may mga oil tsaka milk. They are commonly used in cooking, everyday life. Pati naman sa cosmetic tsaka yung ibang product na papa-enhance ng someone's health. Yun.
Okay, good. Next.
Once again, di ko na kung nabanggit ko na to, pero yung harvesting, usually, akit ka ng puno, gamit ng rope, gamit ng ladder. Yun yung panggamit mo para mag-harvest. Yan, sabay.
Okay.
Yun. So, ito ba yung another addition na inisip ko po?
Anatomy. Okay.
So far, may na-discover po na yung coconut, mayroon po siyang specific density. May high, medium, and low.
Okay.
Yung
Well,
high,
very good.
usually high, once na ano yung puno, na-cut, pwede po ba siya gamitin for something else? Dahil nga taas yung density, matibay. Yung na-observe ko. Hindi pala siya same. Usually, yung mga puno pag over 60 years old, mas magiging less effective na niya, enjoyability tsaka yield. Mas magiging less stable pag patagal ng bandagal. Kaya dapat ingatan ng mabuti.
Okay. Pero Kyle, naging layout niya.
I think it's a little bit better na yung layout kasi mas concise sa information. Hindi na all over
So far,
the place.
hindi na ako spec of the mechanical properties strength.
Ano lang, avoid mo lang yung font na merong mga shadows na ganyan. Yung, ayun, yung
Tanggalin mo yung
avoid
shadow.
mo. It's better when you, mas malinis siya if you, for example, choose the same font as the other font that you use, tapos naka-bold lang siya and a little bit bigger para mas malinis. Try mo yung ganun.
Consistent naman yung font. Although consistent naman lahat. Same lahat yan.
I think mas cleaner lang na font din. Less shadows.
Yeah.
Tas yung imagery that you put in there, parang medyo pixelated. So if you could find a way doon, I think your classmates can help you din naman doon. Kasi alam ko yung ginagawa nila, they get an image and then mapasok nila sa Illustrator and then mayroong something sa Illustrator para maging drawing yon and then they manipulate it. So yan, you can learn from them also. And I suggest you try to check out kung ano yung ginagamit nila. Like yung kay Cedric, nag-improve yung boards niya because he tried a different program meant to do something like that. Yan, imbes na Photoshop. Kasi parang lumalabo sa Photoshop. Anyway, ayan.
So shear strength niya, maka na siya shear strength pag at this point for yung density niya. Gram per centimeter cube. Yung shear niya kasi sobrang baba ko ba sa modulus of elasticity. Saka yung rupture niya. Yung compression naman, parang ice lang naman yung result. Parang normal lang naman. Yun. So, ito na pa yung bago, yung parang where the product itself, which is coconut meat and water. Pwede siya pwede siya nakakain niya or inom. So far, ito yung mga specimen niya. Tulad ng ito yung steps na para pwede makain yung meat. Ititim mo siya with all green exocarp removed. Especially dito sa last where na-polish na yung coconut. Makakain mo na siya na walang issue. Dito naman sa it's a bit more complicated about the for the liquid part. After mo i-receive yung mga material sa store or something, kailangan mo na ihiwa. Iwain mo ng knife para matanggal yung cover. Tapos na hiniwa mo siya, may lalabas na ng tubig, doon mo na nalagyan sa isang container ng coconut water. Once na gamit na yung coconut, ang sa alam ko na recycle pa siya. Pwede ba siya gamitin for something else? Imbis na tinatapon lang. Yun, after yun, in the form of the product na siya, once it's already finished, pwede na use. Ito yung yan.
We're not interested in that unless how will it disinform the architecture? Remember kanina kinriticize ko na we don't need that.
Additional info lang po.
No, we don't need that. It's a waste of time.
ito na yung last part, which is coconut as a material. Pero siya kami sa ano eh, dahil nga sa mga durable niya, especially the ladder-like design of the vessels in the coconut inner layer. Dissipates energy via crack deflection. It can help several architects to create much stronger structures. Kaya nga nakatulong siya sa sa ArcGIS dahil sa durability niya. May iba siyang function, hindi lang as a food or as a tree. May iba din yun. Tulad yan. Kaya nga sabi ni Stephanie na siyang analyst. Smear yun. Ang sabi niya, it has something to do with energy absorption. Kaya nagiging stable siya. Regarding the anatomy of the coconut shell. Ina-check niya to microscope and tomography computer. Yan yung ginawa niya. Kaya yan po yung mini-search ko. What's in cut na yung coconut material. Yan po. And last tip, ito lang po yung bird. Finish na po.
Okay.
Sana yung sa may coconut as a material, mas nag-in-depth ka ng research about it, about the structure nung sa may coconut. If it's going to help inform your architecture, kasi that is something interesting about this. Tapos yung baka it could help inform your architecture, yun. Yung gusto ko actually, meron ka about the tree aging and then yung mga layers kung dun sa may kung alin yung bark na matigas, alin bark yung malambot. Even yung dinidiscuss mo yung sana meron ka pang graphics dun yung how to harvest the coconut, because that could be also an interesting point of view of how you will create architecture that will help in harvesting, for example. I don't know, di ba? Yung mga ganun na bagay, you have to take a look at that. Kasi hindi lang on that parang yan na surface level, but you have to check in the other process. Kasi like, the process na nilagay mo actually is just cutting down the coconut. So, how could you use that process? Parang, you just cut the coconut. Parang, ganun lang yun. There's nothing spectacular about cutting the coconut. Parang, there's something more interesting na nagka-cut ka sa side ng tree para may mga notches, tas you go up to climb the coconut tree to get the coconut. Parang mas interesting pa rin kaysa dyan sa may kukunin mo yung coconut and then open mo. Bale, dapat the architecture won't be like just a place wherein you can get the coconut and you just open it up and have a coconut drink and that's it. Diba? Parang ano yung difference nun sa may kariton na maraming buko, diba? I mean, gets mo? That's something that we would want to avoid because we want to push whatever there is dito sa may coconut na to. Okay.
So the layouts have improved so much, but I think you need to observe how we are advising the other students on developing their party based on the ideas. So it's good that you pattern some of your responses and your research materials based on what you saw. But later on, I would expect that you will create your own development of party. Hi, Idrius. So, but try to learn our consultation from your from the previous students.
Yeah, kuha ka ng mga notes about what we're telling them.
Anyway, I'm going to upload this as soon as I can. Malalaki lang yung mga files eh. O sige. Normally, I would upload this in Big Sky kaso bagal ng Big Sky. So I upload it in the YouTube. So may I ask everyone to show themselves because I'm just gonna leave some messages before we end. So Chris, you can already terminate the sharing.
Thank you po.
Okay. So let's thank you, Kyle, for his time. I'm not sure he will be with us later on or the next time we we do a session. But
Hanggang sa finals.
oh, yun. Because it will also be
Sabihin mo
nice
sa
to
akin.
see for him to
Mm.
see your development on how you grew
Yeah.
as a designer. Again, it's all about growth other than the actual project. As for our next week's deliverables, I did mention before that you need to produce the macro. Um, it's just for checking basically. But I'm not going to provide any requirements in the next 2 days because I'm still preparing it. So take that time to uh, somehow rest and what do you call that? Unless you haven't done the macros research of your site inventory. So but wait for further announcement regarding the next uh, the next deliverable. And when it comes to your particular project or the party, try to develop the party already. Try to think of it. Try to think of your research influencing architecture. You need to produce visual clues from the research so that you can inform the architecture, the physicality of the architecture. I think it's good that Tracy and Janelle raised some valid questions about the process, and I think I provided a good example based on my previous projects with my former student, also Kyle's projects. Um, so that's exactly what we're sort of looking for, the freshness of idea. We're not looking for an iteration of an existing building. We're not looking for uh, an arc daily type of project. We're not looking for that. We're looking for something newer than that. So when in an architecture academic setting, especially in a criticism session, when the work is deemed banal, it means it's actually very offensive to the student. What it means that your idea or your submission lacks the freshness. Do you get it? So it's a waste of time. Sa abroad, ganun, uh, ganun ang criticism. Um, Sometimes they are actually very mean. But yeah, we're looking for the freshness of idea. What it's going to be an attempt for an invention or an attempt for hybridization of typology of program. Okay, so wait for my further announcement, and if you have questions, although I'm a little bit busy, I won't be able to answer right away, but feel free to DM me. Okay? Sige. So again, like I said, I want to remind everyone that don't rely on my requirements. Again, invest in the work that you're producing. If you have questions, even though I'm busy, like I said, I'll try to answer as soon as I can. Especially if I know that you are really doing the project, you're really developing the project. Um, yeah. So I guess it's already 10, almost 10. So thank you guys. I'll see you soon. And wait for my announcement. Okay? Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Good
Thank
night,
you very much.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, sir. Thank
Sure.
you.
Sure. Bye.